All right, well, good afternoon and welcome to this question and answer session. First of all, I must ask if have we received any apologies?
We have received an apology from Councillor Peel, Leader.
Thank you. Are there any declarations of interest? No? Okay. In which case we go on then to public questions. And the first question is from Mr. C. Dean. Can we put that question up? Okay. And Councillor Wimble will be answering this if he's here. No, in his absence, I will answer it. Thank you for your question, Mr. Dean. The council is not seeking to provide a facility of this nature in Hythe, although it may be that a community-led project would be of interest to other stakeholders in relation to the wide range of uses you have outlined. I would encourage you to raise this with Hythe Town Council and local groups who may be keen to take this forward. Thank you. Okay, now we go on to Councillor's question. The first question is from Councillor Keane to Councillor Peel. Did you say that Councillor Peel has given his apology?
He has, Leader.
Okay, well, you'll have to put up with me answering it then. Councillor Keane, would you like to put your question?
Can I just check, because I've got two questions. Is this the Cheriton High Street one?
This is
Leader?
The Cheriton High Street, yes.
Yeah, okay. The building in Cheriton High Street, formerly known as the White Lion Public House, has been derelict since 2006, 15 years. The building is falling into a state of disrepair, and local residents in the area report issues with rats and are concerned that since the roof was removed, that the building is open to the elements and the building is now unsafe. It is also not secure, which could lead to it being broken into and set on fire. The Building Act of 1925, Section 77 and 78, states that local authorities can take steps and order the owner to make the building safe or to take emergency action to make said building safe. Can this issue please be dealt with as a matter of urgency? Haven't we, as the local authority, got a duty of care to the residents in the nearby properties?
Well, thank you for your question, Councillor Keane. A former complaint about waste accumulating at this location was registered, where an environmental protection officer investigated the matter and met the developer on site. They discovered it was mostly material from inside the former pub, which had been left outside, which a majority was later cleared. We are not aware of any reports about rats at this location, and we would ask that any residents affected by this should report their experience via the council's website report it function, so this can be investigated accordingly. Building control have inspected the building and have not deemed it dangerous to the public. A gap in the security fencing was found, and this was re-secured and closed by our officer. The architect has stated the client is keen to proceed with the works as the relevant planning matters are finalised. I believe the property was purchased by developers, and we do not have an initial notice on file from a private building control body for its renovation. A further note, we had a report of 2 dislodged security lights hanging by their wires in January last year, which were re-secured at the time. We carry out inspections throughout the district, most weeks under Section 78 and 78 of the Building Act. They are mostly following sudden events such as storm damage, fire, flooding and vehicle impacts, and are requested by the emergency service attending. We also inspect buildings reported by members of the public as suffering from decay. In all cases, the building is assessed for the presence of a clear and present danger to the public. Often, in the case of decay and with long-term empty buildings that have become an eyesore or a nuisance, where renovation stroke repair works are sought to improve the amenities of the area, Notices under section 215 of the Town and Country Planning Act are more appropriate. These are served by our colleagues in planning and I believe have the benefit of imposing a fine in case of non-compliance. Notices under section 77, 78 and 79 of the Building Act 1984 can only be enforced by the local authority carrying out the work themselves and attempting to recover the cost afterwards. And there must be evidence of clear and present danger. We routinely seek to engage with and, where appropriate, serve notices on owners of those under these sections, but we have not allocated a budget at the moment for undertaking building works on a privately owned premises in this context. Councillor Keane, do you have a second and supplementary question?
Not on that one, no. Thank you. No, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Keane. Well, then the second question is again from you to me this time. So, Councillor Keane, what is your question?
Now that we've finally left the EU and we're in the early stages of what was known as the oven ready deal, coupled with the chaos that was caused when France closed its borders to the UK traffic due to the new strain of COVID being discovered. Although freight is now moving freely and COVID testing is in place for drivers, the stress and anxiety that it caused for local people who had to commute out of the district for work was huge, and local roads and motorways were strewn with rubbish left by the freight traffic. Can I please ask what contingency plans do we have in place if something like the event leading up to the 1st of January was to happen again? Had there been a major incident during that period where the M20 and local roads were impassable, the outcome could have had a devastating outcome. A 45-minute trip to Maidstone, from Maidstone to Folkestone took over 3 hours. Could you please advise what will be done to safeguard residents?
Okay, thank you for that question, Councillor Keane. I do agree with you. It's terrible where the waste and everything that's left behind. We do have a well-resourced emergency planning team who work with our strategic partners under the banner of the Kent Resilience Forum. It is impossible to say that events leading up to January the 1st will never happen again, but I have every confidence in the team and the wider KRF partners who have extensive contingency plans in place. These plans are well tested and can be stood up very quickly should a situation arise. The Council have multiple plans in place, including a major emergency plan and extensive business continuity plans to react quickly to all situations and safeguard our residents. And of course, we do have Operation Rock able to spring in to action. Yes, I smile too. But it is better. It is better than the we were suffering a few years ago under Stack. Thank you, Councillor Keane. Have you a related supplementary? You have to unmute, Councillor Keane.
Sorry, no, not at all. Thank you, Leader, for that.
Okay.
Did you hear me? Sorry, no, I haven't got a supplementary question. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank
Right,
you.
we go then on to question 3 from Councillor Wybrow to Councillor Wimble. Councillor Wybrow.
Can you please let me know the total cost of the council being represented by a QC at the examination in public of the core strategy review?
Do we have Councillor Wimble on board?
I don't think we do, Leader.
No?
No, we don't.
This is most peculiar. You're going to have to put up with me giving you the answer again, Councillor Wybrow. The fees for the council for the use of the barrister at the core strategy review examination are to date £65,970, excluding VAT. It is common for local planning authorities to use barristers at examinations of local plans, particularly where the plans are strategic in nature or have particularly complex proposals. Maidstone Borough Council, Thanet District Council and Canterbury City Council have all used legal representations at their local plan examinations, as has Kent County Council for its mineral and waste local plan. Do you have a supplementary question, Councillor Wybrow?
Well, I was going to ask you why you felt that there was the need, given that the council was well represented by our officers and that the LLP was well represented by the consultants. So you sort of half answered that, but maybe you could give me a fuller answer.
Well, the fuller answer is that it is such an important examination for us. The whole of our business for the future, all our planning, relies on this particular thing going through. And as you see, we're not alone in believing that we have to have some representation. Not the least of which is because if things go away against some of the people that made proposals at the front end of this planning process, we can have legal challenges mounted against us. So it is really a form of deep insurance. Okay. Thank you. Okay, now we go on then to question 4 from Councillor Treloar to Councillor Peel. I must admit, I'm very sorry that Councillor Peel isn't here, and you're going to have to listen to me again. I did try and get this thing split up so it wasn't just me talking all the time, but Councillor Treloar.
Thank you, Leader. Considering the noise, pollution and disturbance to people and wildlife that jet skis can cause on our otherwise peaceful shoreline, is there any scope in our bylaws relating to leisure craft to further reduce the speed limit or distance from the shore at which jet skiers can operate their craft?
Very annoying, aren't they? Last summer, the council engaged with the Coast Guard, Folkestone Harbour and other local groups to respond to a range of water safety concerns, including enforcement of leisure craft and how this could be practically achieved. We also increased enforcement patrols during this period, including weekends, with a focus on the coast. Looking forward to this summer, with a bit of luck, we will be continuing this approach, as well as reviewing how other coastal districts operate. In respect to the bylaw for the enforcement of leisure craft, the council relies on the Seaside Pleasure Boats bylaw, originally confirmed in 1996. In summary, the bylaw imposes a speed limit of 8 nautical miles along most of the district's coastline, up to 200 metres from the shoreline, defined as the mean low water mark. This has been historically a difficult bylaw to enforce for the practical reason that the council does not employ a coastal patrol vessel that can enforce on the water. It is doubtful that the expense of deploying such a craft could be justified. Enforcement from the shore runs into the problem of identifying and then engaging with the offending watercraft users. For these reasons, working with the Coast Guard and groups like Folkestone Lifeguards can be beneficial. Legal services have advised on the scope of amending the existing bylaw to reduce the speed or shore distance. Amending bylaws is a detailed process involving a regulatory assessment, application and approval by the Secretary of State, public consultation and formal approval by the Council. An alternative would be to issue a public space protection order, which has a similar process, although not requiring the approval of the Secretary of State. These options, however, would not resolve the practical difficulties of enforcement. Do you have a supplementary question, Councillor Treloar?
Yeah, I suppose I was just wondering whether the council would consider a public consultation on the matter. Canterbury City Council has recently consulted on implementing a licensing programme, and whether that could form part of finding a solution to this.
Well, certainly we'll give it some consideration, but let's first of all find out how the Canterbury City Council gets on, because that could give us a good indicator from this. Okay, let's move on then to question 5 from Councillor Mead to Councillor Field, who is here, thank goodness.
Thank you, Leader. With the further rollout of residents parking in the area and also the update of our own council website at the moment, would it be possible to simplify the process for booking residents' visitors' parking permits, please? It's been raised to me by various residents, and I myself had to try 5 times on Thursday to actually get the website to accept the information I was putting in to ensure that my visitor didn't have a ticket. So I'm wondering, is there something that we can actually do to implement as we're updating our website at the moment? Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Field.
Thank you, Lida. We are fully aware of some difficulties with the process of booking resident visitors parking passes, and have been working very closely with the supplier to make improvements. Software changes are currently being tested by the supplier, and these should be live on the website shortly. We will continue to review these and feedback any further enhancements that may be required to ensure our customers can access this service as effectively as possible. Thank you.
Do you have a supplementary question, Councillor Mead?
Thank you, Lisa. No supplementary, but I look forward to seeing the updates and making it simpler so that our residents can actually have visitors. Thank you.
Thank you. And now it is question 6, which is from you to me. Would you like to give us your question, please, Councillor?
Thank you, Leader. I'm sorry we're making you work this afternoon. I've been approached by residents in Seabrook as they're becoming increasingly worried regarding the risk of flooding when the Prince's Parade building works commence, and that their homes could be classed as in a flood risk area, which would obviously affect their home insurance adversely. What assurances can District Council offer to residents in Seabrook, especially as storms, heavy rains and floods are becoming more frequent due to climate change? Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your question, Councillor Mead. The planning permission for Prince's Parade scheme requires that prior to the commencement of the development, a detailed sustainable surface water drainage scheme is submitted and to be approved by Folkestone High District Council as the local planning authority, who will consult both the Environment Agency and Kent County Council as the local lead flood authority. As part of their consideration of the submission, the scheme will need to take into account the overall development and the drainage requirements for the whole site and demonstrate that surface water generated by this development for all rainfall durations and intensities up to and including a climate change adjusted 100-year storm can be discharged from the site without increasing the flood risk on or off the site. I would therefore like to reassure Councillor Mead and the residents of Seabrook that sufficient controls have been put in place as part of the planning permission issued by the council to ensure that no development can take place that will increase the level of flood risk. Do you have a supplementary, Councillor Mead?
Yes, please, Leader. It's wonderful that we are doing all this background work. Once those drainage systems and runoff, etc., have been passed and agreed via the District Council, will they be available publicly? Should insurance companies then be asking our residents for assurance?
Yes, those will be public documents.
That's wonderful. Thank you very much.
Okay. Now we go on to question 7 from Councillor Davison to Councillor Wimble. Has Councillor Wimble joined us yet?
No, he hasn't, Leader.
Oh, Councillor Davis, you're going to have to put up with me. Would you like to give me your question, please?
I will, thank you. Homes being built on the old Wyvale Garden Centre in Folkestone have been built too close to the trees along the site boundary with Castle Hill Avenue and Shorncliffe Road. This has led to an application from the developer to remove or cut trees back, including the loss of an imposing Corsican pine. This was entirely foreseeable. So why was permission given for this development to be built so close to the trees, which are protected by a tree protection order, despite the advice at the time and against the wishes of local residents?
Well, I tend to agree with you. Thanks for your question. The development was granted some time ago and unfortunately did not suitably consider the future living conditions of residents alongside their relationship with existing trees. The current Chief Planning Officer agrees that this outcome was foreseeable and has raised the issue with his team to ensure that future applications consider whether the proximity of development to protected trees will result in pressure for their movement. A sad tale, I think. Have you a supplementary question, Councillor Davison?
Well, that's helpful to hear. It would be helpful just to understand practically how those safeguards are going to be put in place.
Okay, well, I'll get the Chief Planning Officer to give you a briefing note.
Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Davison to Councillor Mrs Hollingsby. Councillor Davison.
Good afternoon, Councillor Hollingsby. What percentage of the district's COVID winter grant scheme budget has been distributed so far, and how many families in our district have been helped?
Thank you, Councillor Davison, for your question. My answer is going to be a little bit longer than your actual question. Just before before Christmas, the District Council was notified that £75,376.54 emergency grant funding had been allocated to us via KCC. We acted extremely quickly and distributed 25% of the grant before receiving any funding from KCC to our partnership agencies so that anyone that they were aware of needing help could be supported prior to Christmas. Several remote meetings were held with all the agencies as to how the funding should be distributed. It was agreed that the grant be distributed according to the capacity the organisations had to receive referrals and distribute the support needed. And this is where the funding went to. The Rainbow Centre Food Bank, 5,000, Salvation Army Food Bank, 10,000, Hythe Community Hub, because they undertook some additional coordination for the other hubs, 17,000, Folkestone Community Hub via the Three Hills Sports Centre, 10,000, the Marsh Community Hub, 6,000, KCC, Range of Early Help, £16,376 and the 54 pence. Citizens Advice, 4,000. Kent Coast Volunteers, 2,000. And our own Rebs and Benefits, £5,000 to help with any people needing help with the fuel bills or winter allowance or whatever in that to make sure that they were warm and fed over that period. The funding is for the period to the end of March 2021, with monitoring taking place as required by KCC. Each agency will submit their monitoring data to us for collating and then submitting to KCC. Members will be notified of how families have been helped once final details are collated. And I hope that answers your question, Councillor Davison, unless you have supplementary.
That's helpful, thank you. Will the COVID winter grant scheme be used to provide school meals during half term, February half term?
It could be if that's necessary, but I believe there are other systems in place to cope with that.
Okay, we'll go on to question 9, Councillor McConville to Councillor Wimble, who's ever distinguished by his absence. So you will get me again. Councillor McConville.
Thank you, Leader. Yes. What, if any, amount of funding has been given to businesses in error with regards to the COVID business support grants?
Well, thank you for your question. I'd much rather you asked how much we're giving out, but I'll say this one. The discretionary business grant scheme, during the summer 2020, there were 2 mistaken payments. One duplicate grant was paid in error to a business, which was subsequently repaid. And in the second case, a lower grant than was applicable was initially paid, but then boosted when this became apparent. With the current additional restrictions grants award since November 2020, there have been no errors apparent to date. For the small business grant and retail leisure and hospitality schemes, March 2020 to September 2020, we had the following: 3 fraudulent claims totaling 30,000, all funds recovered. 3 paid twice in error totaling 30,000, all funds recovered. 21 non-compliance cases over 7 different businesses totaling £275,000, 180,000 which has been recovered, 95,000 to 1 business is outstanding. This was due to a late change in guidance that couldn't have been avoided. Folkestone and High District Council won't be held liable for this outstanding amount if it can't be recovered. There have been no cases in the local restriction support grant and Christmas support payment schemes so far. Do you have a supplementary question?
You've really just answered it just at the end there, Leader. Yeah, just to ensure, obviously, the money being given by central government, if any was given in error, whether we would be liable or not, and you stated that we weren't, so that's brilliant.
Good. Okay, then you've got another question to Councillor Wimble. Would you like to give it, please?
Yep, thank you.
Councillor Wimble's here, he can answer it.
Yes, I'm very sorry about that. What question are you up to?
The last one.
The last one.
The last one.
Better late than never.
Yeah, I'm sorry I got held up at the garage. Is this from Councillor McConville?
Yes.
Yep.
Thank you.
Right. Question first.
If you're ready.
Yep, I'm ready.
Could you please offer an update to the residents of East Folkestone regarding the planning proposal for Highview School? The application for 30 much needed social houses was submitted in June of 2019.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Councillor McConville. Sorry. The application for Highview School is being actively processed between the applicant and the local planning authority. Officers are working with the applicant to address the issues raised by consultees in an effort to make positive recommendations to the committee and help deliver some much needed housing for the district.
Do you have a supplementary question, Councillor McConville?
Only to see if there's any possible idea of when this might go to committee.
I can't actually answer that, but I will contact Llewellyn Lloyd.
Okay.
You will get your email.
That'd be brilliant. Thanks very much.
Okay. Well, that actually ends this question and answer session. Thank you all very much for attending. Wait until we will now stop.